So all of us are limited on time. We have family obligations, responsibilities, work that has to get done, things that we have to do that keep us away from maybe sometimes the things that we really want to do, like our creative hobbies or expressing ourselves creatively, doing the things that our souls really long for. If you've experienced that where it just doesn't seem like you have enough time for creative output and creative expression, you're not alone. But I actually think that having limited time can actually be good for your creative hobbies. I think of it like a superpower. And so I want to talk about how you can use your limited time to be able to approach your creative hobbies, carve out the time that you think maybe you don't have, and how that limited time can actually be really good for you as a creative. So here's kind of my unique or different approach of looking at time. We all have the same amount of time, right? That means that we all have the opportunity to carve out time, to make time for the things that are most important to us. I think sometimes we don't carve out the time just because we don't want to or we don't know how to, but we all have the same amount of time, and there are opportunities to carve out that time. And it's important, right? You know this as a creative. If you're not able to do your creative hobbies, do the things that help you express yourself creatively, if you aren't able to use your unique God-given gifts, you kind of wither away. That's how I feel when I go for maybe it's weeks or months without doing any kind of creative hobby or expression. I'm just withering away and not really feeling my best. So it's very important that we actually carve out time for our unique gifts. So you feel that pressure to create, but you don't feel like you have enough time. But I actually think about an hour a week is plenty of time. It definitely depends on the hobby, but 1 hour a week might be all that you need. Setting that intentional hour once a week to create might be the key to being able to finally express yourself creatively and show up for yourself every single week. That 1 hour, you're going to gravitate towards that. Think about it this way. If you have a best friend and they call you out of the blue, right? You get that phone call and you're like, oh my gosh, it's my best friend. They reach out to you, you make some time to talk to them and they say, hey, we need to hang out. Let's spend some time together. Even if you are slammed, you're crazy busy, you have no time to spare, guess what you're going to do? This is your best friend. You're going to make time for that person. You're going to carve out some time in your schedule for them. If we view our creativity like that best friend, that outlet that we have to express ourselves, that moment and opportunity for us to do what we need to do as people, as creatives, we're going to find that time. We're going to carve out that time. Your creative hobby deserves time dedicated to it. So if you are struggling to think, how could I carve out an hour in my schedule? I want you to do this thing first. Do a time audit. Simply create 7 columns on a sheet of paper and every single day write down everything that you did. Feel free to round up to like the nearest 30 minutes, but everything should go on there. So the time that you slept, how much time did you take for making meals that day, your commute to work, how long you were at work, everything that you did, I want you to write it down. And pretty quickly you'll discover that yes, your schedule is full, but maybe it's full of things that aren't the most important thing. I know sometimes there's things that we do that are necessary or we have to do them. We're taking care of family, taking care of kids, whatever it is. These are important things that we need to be doing. But you may find, hey, there's some chunks of time in here. There's some moments where I could set aside time to carve out for my creative hobby. So yeah, a great thing about this exercise with the time audit is you're gonna see things, like I said, that you have time for. Oh, here's some space that I have in my schedule. You also might see that you're spending a lot of time doing something that you don't particularly enjoy. Maybe this is a sign for you to say, hey, I'm gonna stop doing that thing. Or do less of it. I'm going to make this less of a priority so that the more important things in my life can take up more of my time. All right, so now you've done your time audit for the week. The next thing you're going to do is go to your phone and find out how much you are using your phone in a given day. How much screen time do you have? What does that look like? And I want you to look at, okay, where could I do less time on my phone. The great thing about this is that we all spend way too much time on our phones. And so there you go. In addition to the time audit, maybe you found a couple hours in your week available. Now you have some additional hours just by taking away time that you spent on your phone. So it is possible to find time to carve out hours that you need for your creative work. This is time that your soul longs for. And so then what you can do is, now that you have identified some extra hours in your week, carve out that time and specifically identify in your calendar when you are going to do your creative hobby. When in the week, maybe it's once a month, maybe it's every day, whatever that looks like. When are you going to do that? Set that up on your calendar, make it a recurring time, and make that time set apart. It's important that you do this. It's important that you set aside time for this creative and important work. Now that you have this time set aside, how do you make it impactful? I think the best thing that you can do is set intentions for this time. Basically saying, okay, this is what I want to accomplish in this time. You can come up with that before you go into your set aside time. You can set those intentions before, and that can be really helpful for going in and not overwhelming yourself. I think sometimes if, let's say you have just an hour, 1 hour is set aside for your creative hobby, that might be overwhelming. Your brain might kind of start to spiral a little bit of like, okay, quick, I gotta be creative. I have to do this thing. I have to make something. I have to make sure this time is valuable. And then that can be overwhelming. That creates other problems. And so there's a couple ways you could go about that. One would be, like I said, setting the intention, going in with clear ideas of what you're going to do, what that time is for. The other could just be going in with no expectations, going in and just saying, you know what, this is my time for me. It's not about the results. It's not about how I used that time. Just knowing that you spent that time set aside for your creative endeavors and going into it with little expectations and just knowing that that time is for you and for you to, be where you belong. These are your God-given gifts, and this is something that you have to do. The space is also really important. Setting aside the time is great. Setting the intention for the time, very important. The space is very important. So depending on your creative hobby and what you're doing, that's going to be key. Maybe if you're doing some painting or drawing, it's setting out your tools, setting out how you're going to be pursuing your creative hobby, setting that space, making sure it's ready for you is important. Maybe if that looks like going to a coffee shop, sitting down at your computer, whatever that hobby looks like, going into nature, being alone, being in solitude. All of these things can help depending on your creative hobby. Going in with that intentionality and setting up that space. If it's in your home, making sure that you have that space set aside is really important for all the work that you have done to set aside time for your creative hobby. And then my last advice would be just to start slow. Like I said, don't make it this big deal. This is the time that you've set aside for you. Take it as it is. Don't stress out about it. Don't make it this big thing or this performance. You have to show up and have specific results by the end of your time. This is the time set aside for you. Make it be how you want it to be, but make sure that you're showing up for yourself. Set up that time in the calendar and show up, because this work is very important. That is what I am learning today. I'd love to know how this impacts you and reaches you where you're at in your creative journey. I would love to know. Please let me know in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching, and stay creative.